lifecycle, identify the defects. We don't necessarily want to call them security vulnerabilities, because does a software developer care about a software vulnerability? Not necessarily. Do they care about a defect? Yeah, they know what to do with a defect. So if you can convince them that the software vulnerability, the security vulnerability is in fact a defect, that's a battle that you've won, and it's an important battle to win. So the earlier you get the defect, the less money it costs. So there is a cost effectiveness here that I think is important. Now Jennifer has a great idea. She's going to talk to you about it now.
I just thought every panelist was supposed to answer every question. That's really why I came up with something. But now that I came up with this thought, I have to share it with you because it is too funny. I was working as a director of IT audit about 10 years ago in a company that had 8 or 10 different CIOs and software development communities, and there was a project manager, a chief admin officer for the global CIO who was in charge of, quality overall, and I was dealing directly with him and all the internal audit results, and a lot of them had to do with software quality and not following the building secure code, and I think that was like, Viega and McGraw's first publication back then that, that we were all just reading for the first time. And so this guy, 10 years later, has been a successful CIO in a couple of companies, just joined a startup. I just left my CISO job and I'm consulting now, and we get together and he's telling me about his e-commerce application that's going to roll out in 9 months, and I'm congratulating him, and then we're leaving and I'm saying, so when are you going to have me come look at that security? I mean, I know you're a startup, I'll do it for a receivable, right? And he's like, oh, well, we're rolling it out probably in about 9 months from now. And I just looked at him. It's like, if you don't have a lot of process around you, and Carlos, brought it up, you've got to get that part of your process and rote, and everybody around you has got to know those are the steps that you have to go through. If you're a CIO just faced with a blank slate, even if you've been steeped in controls and trained by me, you forget. It's not your culture to be thinking about how to build security in. It's got to get this in, and we better check the security at the end, or before it goes out, at least. So you cannot underestimate the amount of culture that you are up against when you put in these building blocks. But if you do put them in and people take them for granted, then you've got a really good chance of getting that security in along the way. I'll also give you my CISO rules of thumb when it comes to putting something in that is not secure. You've got about a month before some developers who are working on it leave, and then somebody knows that it's vulnerable and can exploit it. You've got 3 months before they tell 2 friends, and now you've got a bunch of contractors communities that know about your vulnerability, and you've got 6 months before strangers are going to break in. So depending on the extent of the vulnerability, the amount of money you could lose, you can tell them, I'll give you a month live before you have to fix it, as long as I see a project plan where it'll come in at the end of the month, or 3 months or 6 months, depending on that. And that has worked for me 100% of the time.
All right. Thanks, Jennifer. Jim?
We're ready to go on to the next question now. Okay.
Well, it looks like we're running out of time, so let's move on to
talking about running out of time. I think I'm one of those guys who needs to run along.
Yeah, I know you have a hard stop, Sunil, at 3, so thanks for your
Thank you
insight.
for having me over. Appreciate
Sure.
it.
All right, thank you. All right, since we are running out of time, we'll skip the rest of the questions and get to the business online poll. What I'd like to do is, let's do this with a show of hands. I'd like to understand how the CISOs and senior executives use application security in your personal lives. And I have some statistics about the industry average. So we'll see if our panel is more conservative or ahead of the curve when it comes to doing work online. So how many of you do online banking? All right, so 4 out of 5. I think the industry average is 1 out of 4, so our panelists are ahead of the curve here, which is good. And several of them are from banks, so of course I guess we got to expect that answer. Did you buy or sell anything on eBay during the last year? Nope. All right, 1. Well, the industry average is, again, 1 in 5, 1 in 4, so
Say eBay or Wabi Sabi? Oh, it's eBay. Yeah, no.
All right. Do you have an email address that you use from sites like Google, Yahoo, public email address? All right.
Mine is
Well,
mine's S Palin.
That's the one which was hacked in, right? So I guess.
Yeah, I got to get a
Yeah.
new one now.
How many of you have a Facebook or MySpace page that you regularly update? 2 of you, all right. I mean, the LinkedIn, well, apart from LinkedIn, because I guess all of them have LinkedIn profiles. So I was talking about
So
more.
I have Facebook as well.
Facebook,
It's
okay.
part of my parental monitoring tool for my
All right.
kids. Yeah.
So the average is, I believe, 1 in 3 in the US have a MySpace or Facebook page. Right. And do you take any special precautions when you access the web? I know I've talked to some people, they use a VMware image or, you know, Joe, I guess I see you nodding your head. Or, okay, bootable distro, all right.
Does Vista count?
Well, Ricardo? Jim?
Yes. The
Yes?
answer is yes, and I'm
Okay.
not disclosing what I'm using.
All right. All right, with that, I'd like to conclude the panel discussions. We had several more questions, but we got some very insightful answers. And please join me in giving a loud round of applause to the panelists for their contribution. Some of the panelists have graciously agreed to stay over.